Good morning and namaste to all of you. Let's start our Sunday Gita class with some prayers first. Om Parthaye Pratibodhitam Bhagavata Narayan Swayam Vyasen Gratitam Puran Munina Madhye Mahabharatam Advaitamritvarshine Bhagavati Mashtadashadhyayane Amtvam Anusandhami Bhagavad Gita Bhavdveshine Namo Astute Vyas Vishal Buddhe Full Arvind Ayat Patra Netar येन तव्या भारतल पुनः प्रज्वलितो ज्ञान में प्रतिभा पर पान पारी जाता है तोत्र वेत्र एक पाने ज्ञान मुद्राए कृष्णाए गीता अमृत दुहे नमः सर्वोपनिषदो गावो दोगदा गोपाल नंदना पार्थो वत्सा सुधीर भोगता दुग्धम गीता अमृतम महत वसुदेव सुतम देवम कंस चानूरमर्दनम देवकी परमानंदम कृष्णम वंदे जगद्गुरुम भीष्म द्रोण तटा जयद्रथ जला गांधार नीलोत्पला शल्य ग्राहवती कृपेन वहनी कर्नेन वेलाकुला अश्वत्थाम विकर्ण घोर मकरा दुर्योधन अवर्तने सो तीर्णा खलु पांडवई रन नदी के वर्तका केशवा पाराशरे वत्सरोज जमलम गीता अर्थगंधोटकम नाना ख्यान केसरम हरि कथा संबोधन अबोधितम लोके सज्जन षटपद रह रह पेपिये मानम मुदा भूयाद भारत पंकजम कलिमल प्रध्वंसी न श्रेयसे मूकम करोति वाचालम पंगुम लंघ्यते गिरिम यत्कृपातमं वंदे परमानंद माधवम यम ब्रह्म वरुण इंद्र रुद्र मरुतः स्तुन्वन्ति दिव्ये स्तवे वेदै सांग पद क्रमोपनिषदै गायन्ति यम सानका ध्यान अवस्थे तद्गतेन मनसा पश्यन्ति यम योगिनो यस्य अंतम न विदुसुर असुर गणा देवाय तस्मै नमः. Chapter 19, you can open your books on verse number 45. And in the last three verses, 42, 43, 44, Lord Krishna has given us a detailed enumeration of the duties of a Brahman or a Kshatriya, Vaishya, and the Shudra. He said, born of their Swabhav, born of their nature. So now today we will see how doing your own duties. So Shudra doing his duty, Brahman doing his duty, and the Kshatriya and the Vaishya also doing their duties, how can they reach perfection? So let's look at verse number 45. Swe swe karmani abhiratah sam siddhim labhate nara swakaram nirataha siddhim yatha vindati tat shrinu. Swe means in one's own. Okay, so to emphasize that, he used that twice. Swe swe, in one's own. Karmani. Karmani is the actions, the duty. Abhirata, devoted. Sam siddhim, perfection. Labhate, attains. Nara, people. Swakaram nirataha, engaged in his own duty. Siddhim, perfection. Yatha means how. Vindati, finds. Tat means that. Shrinu means listen. So he says devoted, each to his own duty. A person attains perfection. How engaged in his own duty he attains perfection? He says, listen. So Swadharam is these prescribed duties based upon our guns and station in life. Performing them ensures that we use the potential abilities of our body and mind in a very constructive and beneficial manner. And what happens from there? The purification, growth. That is auspicious for us also and for the society also, when we do our duties properly. So he says, each devoted to his own duty. That means by being loyal to our own level of feelings, the ideas, our own development of consciousness, we can really evolve into the higher states of self-unfoldment. So each one is ordered by his own swabhav. See, there's a swadharma and swabhav. Swabhav, our own nature. We can discover the fulfillment only then if we understand this properly. When we work in the field ordered by our own vasanas, that is the swabhav. We have created our own swabhav. So when we recognize it, we can achieve a sense of fulfillment. Great peace can come from there too. So when unbroken awareness becomes a constant habit of the mind, only then the work becomes effective and our evolution starts. So now in the next verse, because in this verse he said, Shrinu, I'm going to tell you how. So listen carefully. How can one devoted to one's own duty attain perfection? Let's look at verse number 46. Yataha pravriti bhutanam yen sarvam idam tatam swakarmana tam abhyacharim siddhim vindati manava. Yata means from whom. Pravriti is the evolution. Bhutanam of beings. Yen by whom. Sarvam all. Idam this. Tatma means pervaded. Swakarmana with his own duty. Tam means him. Abhyacharya worshipping. Siddhim perfection. Vindati attains. Manavaha a human being. From whom is the evolution of all beings? By whom all this is pervaded? Worshipping him with one's own duty. A person attains perfection. Okay? That's how any action or work can be changed into worship. By attuning our minds all through our activity towards God. So he's talking about that higher power, the God. So there are three things over here. One is we got to know what our swabhav is, the nature. Then second thing, the swadharma, the station in life. And the third thing, we got to learn how to surrender to God. So it's like a spirit of total self-surrender. By constantly remembering that higher, we can definitely work efficiently also. Because we are not anxious about the fruit. We are remembering him and we are doing everything for him. So no anxiety. We will work efficiently. And that's how our ego also gets dissolved into that higher. And that's how the vasanas get exhausted. So constantly remembering him. He from whom all beings arise. We all have come from him. By whom all this is pervaded. That's also God. So to remember constantly the Atma or Paramatma, because that's where the dynamism comes from. Our body, mind, intellect cannot function without it. So we got to just keep an eye on that higher power. See, just like a musician, constantly conscious of the That person who's standing, the leader in the front, giving the directions. So keeping an eye on that, but playing the musical instrument, can play that so beautifully. This is what we need to do. Do our work, but always stay connected with that higher power. This is the skill we need to cultivate. That's how a glow of tranquil peace, also a dynamic love, comes to shine through our actions. That's how our achievements, they'll have the radiation. It's almost like a shadowless light of perfection. People will say, yes, your body is a human, but your actions are divine. You walk like a divine being, you talk like a divine being, because you are connected with that higher divinity. So that's how the work can be changed into worship. All we have to do is attune our minds to Him alone. Even the most dreadfully unpleasant field of activity can be converted into a sacred chamber of devotion. Whether you think that cleaning is not a great job to do, but if you are cleaning, but remembering God. Over here, Arjun is supposed to wage the war with his teacher, with his grandfather. That's not something easy. But Lord Krishna is telling him that you can do this while remembering God. And it becomes a worship. So by setting our hands and feet to work in the field of objects with the mind and intellect, held constantly conscious of the divine presence. That's what he's telling us. So that's how, through the performance of our own duties, not somebody else's duties, you can attain the highest, your own duties. That's how the inner personality gets integrated. And such an integrated person is meditating, no matter what he or she is doing. Then he says, Shreyan swadharmaha viguna pardharmat swa anushtitat swabhav niyatam karma kurvan na apnoti klibsham. Shreyan, better. Swadharma, one's own duty. Viguna, destitute of merit. Vigun. Pardharmat, then the duty of another. Swa anushtat, then the well performed. Swabhav niyatam, ordained by his own nature. Karam is actions, kurvan doing, na means not, apnoti incurs, klibsham sin. Better is one's own duty, though destitute of merits, than the duty of another well performed. He who does the duty ordained by his own nature incurs no sin. So that means that to work in any field ordered by our own vasanas is better. Because we are here to exhaust our own vasanas, our old impressions. Whenever we are striving in a field contrary to our existing vasanas, we not only fail to gain any exhaustion of the existing vasanas, but we create a new load of vasanas too. So it's like impressions are there. We are here to clean the impressions. We didn't do that. We think something is better. Something looks more glamorous to us. So we are adding more vasanas. So that's why he says, better is one's own dharma, though imperfect, than the dharma of another well performed. So by performing duties ordained by our own nature, swabhav niyatam karma, the individual comes to no evil. No evil means you are not creating any more obstacles for yourself on this path. So the individual has no chance of imprinting any new vasanas, new impressions on his mind. When we do our swadharma, there's a twofold advantage he's telling us. It is really in tune with our own disposition. So that means it's very natural for us to do that. Because that's how our personality is. See, just like they say, flying to a bird and swimming to a fish, very natural. So when we know that what our own dharma is, it's easier. So don't look around what looks good in the society, but look within, see what you're supposed to do. And secondly, because it's comfortable to the mind, it can almost be done involuntarily. Without even thinking about it, you can do it. Because that's what your nature is. And very easy to stay engaged in the devotion of Lord, in that work. You're not struggling with it. So these are the two benefits. So it's no use employing our minds in fields which are contrary to our nature. Everyone has a precise place in this world. Everybody. We all have our own role to play, our own importance. None is to be despised because each can do something which others cannot do as well. Not just only the human beings, even in the nature, when you see what birds do, what insects do, what spiders do, they all have their job. There's no redundancy in the Lord's creation. Not even a single blade of grass anywhere at any time is unnecessarily created. Because Creator is perfect. Everything has a purpose. Not only the good, but even the bad are also His manifestation. We saw that in the previous chapters. Lord Krishna said, I'm everywhere. In the gambler also, in a criminal also, in the mountain also, in the sky also. I'm everywhere. There's no place I'm not. Nothing is to be condemned, not to be despised. Everything is He, and He alone is. But the duty which we are bound to, if it's riddled with evil, are we still supposed to follow it? That is the answer he's giving, because Arjun must have thought at that time that, hey, what I'm supposed to do over here is evil. Killing my own, fighting with my own grandfather. So let's look at how he answers that in verse number 48. Sahajam karam kaunte sadosham api na tyajet sarv arambha hi doshen dhumen agni iv aprita. Sahajam, which is inborn. Karam is action, kaunte, Arjun. Sadosham, with fault. Api means even, na means not, tyajet, one should abandon. Sarv arambha, all undertakings. He means indeed doshen, by evil. Dhumen, by smoke. Agni, fire. Iv means like, avrita, covered, or enveloped, avrita. It's like a veiling. One should not abandon, O Arjuna, the duty to which one is born, though faulty. Are not all undertakings enveloped by evil, as fire by smoke? So he's making us think over here. After explaining a lot about the swabhav, the nature, and the swadharam, the station in life, Lord Krishna is bringing our attention towards this climax of the thought. His advice is here for all the people, at all times, in all stations. Even when the work so ordained by the vasanas is full of evil, he says, sadosham. His advice is, we should not relinquish it. Na tyajet. So that means we got to focus on what our nature is and what our duty is. There are two words, born with, that is sahajam. And then there's another word which is born into. That means according to the environment. So when we look at these terms properly, then we can really dissect this verse much better. Because there's an ocean of difference between these two terms, born with and born into. So Lord Krishna is saying that one should not renounce actions which are ordered by the vasanas, born with, because you have brought those vasanas with you. He's not saying that one should pursue the evil actions one is born into. So these are the two forces that control and guide, define and determine our actions. The impulses brought forth by the pressure of the mental temperaments within, that is born with. And the pressure of the environment, where all the new temptations are entering, that is born into the environment. So we got to follow faithfully our own nature. But at the same time, we got to be very careful to renounce all the demands which the objective world is putting on us. So we are here to clean the inside while living in this outer world. So more attention should be on our own mind. Am I cleaning my mind while doing my duties? Or am I just putting more and more filth on my mind? So the vasanas one is born with are to be lived through without ego and without desire. While the vasanas atmosphere is creating, into which a person is born, should not be allowed to contaminate our personality. It's almost like we have a house, we are living in the house. Sure, there's a dirt in there. We need to clean it up. While we are cleaning, make sure that doors and windows are closed so that no new dirt is coming in. If there's storm outside, windows are open, sure the dirt will come in. So inside dirt is already there, but the outside dirt is coming and make it more filthy. So this is what happens with us when we are more interested in the outer environment than cleaning our inner mind. So this is what he's telling us. He's very careful in indicating that a spiritual seeker must constantly strive hard to stand apart from the effects of the environment. That's why we got to remember that we are master of our circumstances. And we got to learn how to assert this mastery. In fact, all actions, he says, are clouded by defects as fire by smoke. It's a beautiful example he's giving, because often we say, no, this action is not good enough.
Just 1 second.
Every action has the effect of it. And we got to be careful. So no work is free from defect, he's saying. We cannot even breathe without killing millions of microbes. When we cultivate a land, we destroy innumerable microorganisms. When we eat, we deprive another of food. Since Swadharam entails activities, it cannot be devoid of defects. But the benefit of the Swadharam far outweighs its defects. Okay, so defect is always there in every action, but we got to see where the benefit is. Benefit is that we are cleaning ourselves. This kind of a living provides a comfortable and natural path for our purification and elevation. For most people, there's a difference between work and play. But if they do what they love, then work becomes play. And they never have to work for another day. That's what happens when we know what we are supposed to do. What our calling is, work is not a work, it's a play. And we see that certain people in the society, that's how they live. Tirelessly, they are working, but they don't even think they are working. Because they have figured it out, what their vasanas are, what their swabhav is, and what their swadharam is. So the defect is unavoidable. That's what he's saying. Okay, with this example of a smoke and fire. If there is a fire and there's a smoke in that fire, if there's enough ventilation, that fire will go away. Atmosphere will be clean. Fire is burning, but it's not very smoky if there's a ventilation. And that's how we do. That's how we ventilate our own mind. Less the ego, the less we'll feel the pollutants of the actions. Otherwise, every action has the pollutant. There is a term which he said, Sarv Arambha. Arambh. That is very important word over here. When we think that I am the one who is starting it, that is an ego. When we let that go, then ego melts down. So that's how the work can be elevating, and that's how our actions should be. Okay, let me just read it again, because I think these couple of verses, 47, 48, he is giving us very clearly how to evolve ourselves. He says one should not abandon the duty to which one is born. Okay, though faulty. For are not all undertakings enveloped by evil as fire by smoke? Okay. Just remember that. Next time when you're doing something and you think it's not good enough, somebody else's duty is better than mine. Just remember this, that we are here to clean our own mind. Now in the next verse, verse number 49, he's telling us the benefit of acting according to our swabhav. So that means what we are born with. असक्त बुद्धि सर्वत्र जितात्मा विगत स्पृहा नैष्कर्म्य सिद्धिम परमाम संन्यासेन अधिगच्छति. Asakt buddhi, whose intellect is unattached. See, sakt means attached, asakt means unattached. And you know, when you do say asakt, see, there's two words, they sound similar, but big difference. Asakt is unattached, asakt is completely attached. So there's a sakt, asakt, and asakt. Remember that. It's very important to know the difference. So over here it's asakt, unattached. Sarvatra is everywhere. Jitatma, who has subdued himself. Vigat sapriha, whose desires have fled. That means they have gone away. No more desires. Nash karmya siddhim, the perfection consisting in freedom from action. So in other words, a state of actionlessness. Nash karmya siddhim. Paramam, the supreme, sannyasin, through renunciation. Adhigachati, he attains. He whose intellect is unattached everywhere. Who has subdued his self, from whom desire has fled. He, through renunciation, attains the supreme state of perfection from action. Remember that Lord Krishna is telling all this while standing in that war zone to Arjuna. Okay, but that doesn't mean that it doesn't apply to us. We can apply all this very easily to our own lives. He wanted to run away. We also want to run away sometimes. So that's why we got to remember that Lord Krishna's thesis in entire Gita is that mere running away from life and its duties is not sannyas. And it's not even a renunciation actually. So over here, Lord Krishna is defining the state of actionlessness, nash karmya siddhi. Because this state is reached when we do not identify ourselves with the equipments of matter. That means our body or our senses. So body, mind, intellect, when we don't identify with that, that's called nashkarmya siddhi. That's how we regain our life in pure consciousness as the part of Supreme Self. Because when we forget this, who we are, the misconception of ego arises. We really move away from our real personality. And we come to believe that we are merely the limited ego. This kind of a self-forgetfulness can be seen all over. So the ego arises when we are ignorant and forgetful of our spiritual nature. When this ignorance has ended, only then there's the experience of this eternal, infinite bliss. And that's where there's no want. There's no desire, worldly desire. When the desires are absent, thoughts are not breeding there. That means the thoughts have dried up. And the actions also, you are doing the actions, but that's what's called nashkarmya siddhi. Actions are happening through the body, but there are no desires. Thoughts are still also. Body is just doing what it's supposed to do. So this is called actionlessness, nashkarmya siddhi. So in this state, there is no ignorance. This is the wise state of being. That's how the saintly people are. He talked about desires quite a bit throughout Bhagavad Gita. Desires are actually the children of ignorance. More ignorant we are about ourselves, more the desires, the worldly desires. And the thoughts, they arise from desires. More the desires, more the thoughts. And actions are thoughts expressed in the outer world. Whatever we are thinking, we'll do accordingly. So according to this definition, ignorance is the great grandfather of action. But with the knowledge of the soul, the spirit, ignorance ends because we know who we are. And in that state, thoughts and actions cannot be. So that's why he called this a perfection, nashkarmya siddhi. This is the state of full awakening. And with reference to its previous condition, this condition is called actionlessness, thoughtlessness, or desirelessness. And then he says, asakt buddhi sarvatra, an intellect unattached everywhere. Because normally our intellect is attached to the sensuous things of the world. It gets agitated, our body gets frail, gets shattered. Mind wants the satisfaction but cannot have the satisfaction, no matter how many sense objects are there. So he says, with the sadhana, you got to have a asakt buddhi sarvatra. Intellect devoid of all the attachments with the equipments of the perception, feeling, and thinking. True state of actionlessness. So that sadhana or the discipline has taken to that level where the intellect is pristine, clean, clear. So this kind of a sannyasa, this kind of a siddhi, the highest level of siddhi Lord Krishna is talking about. Nashkarmya siddhi can be reached even among the flow of the world by detaching ourselves from events and outcomes. Simply focusing on our duty, that's it. That's how we can attain that siddhi. It's almost like as the water flowing under a bridge enters from one side and flows out from the other. Bridge is neither the recipient of the water nor its distributor. It remains unaffected. The same way this yogi is doing the duty. Keeping the mind unaffected by the stream of events. These yogis, they do not neglect putting the best effort in doing their duty because it's a worship to God. Every action is they are doing for the God. And they just leave the outcome of any action to God because it's doing for God. God knows what is good, what is bad. So that's how they just stay unattached. So their hands are working, their feet are working, the whole body is working, mind and intellect is working too, but they remain undisturbed with the effect of those actions. And this is what this Jit Atma is. That's another beautiful term he used. One who has subdued his ego. It's like a self-mastery has reached to that level. Desires have fled away, vigat sapriha. Mind is subdued. And the seeker has accomplished the state of complete detachment of his intellect from the world of sense objects. So by correct analysis and investigation, when the sapriha is dried up, see, sapriha means the clinging. This clinging is a mental clinging. Both the senses of enjoyership and the doership will get sublimated. What is left behind then? Experience of the self. Normally what happens, all our attention is towards the clinging of the outcomes, or clinging to the actions, or clinging to what is happening. When all that is dried up, all you know is the divine within, divine everywhere. Lord Krishna is never tired of repeating this self-restraint and the freedom from desire throughout Bhagavad Gita. Because these two are unavoidable prerequisites for our spiritual growth. If you want to grow, if you want to attain that ultimate goal, these two are needed: self-restraint and freedom from desire. And he'll talk about more in the following verses too. So in this one beautiful verse, it looks complicated, but when you break it down, it's not. He whose intellect is unattached everywhere. So that means not attached anywhere. Who has subdued his self? That self is the lower self, the ego, and the senses, from whom desire has fled. No more worldly desire. He, through renunciation, attains the supreme state of freedom from action. That doesn't mean he doesn't do any action, but it's a actionlessness. Asakt buddhi. Nash karmya siddhi. So I'm sure you knew these words, but when he put them all together in one verse, Jit Atma, Vigat Sapriha, Nash Karmya Siddhi, Sanyas also, it's really making a deep point over here for us to think about and then ultimately walk on this path. So let's stop it here. Om Purnamada Purnidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaye Purnameva Visheshyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Thank you very much.